Hi everyone, it's Roger here from the What's on Disney Plus podcast. This week we're going to be doing something a little bit different because I've got Kasey here from What's on Netflix, and we're going to be kind of comparing Netflix and Disney Plus of like what's going to be coming up next year, and also kind of looking at what's been going on this year. So it's a little bit different. It's like no news because I'm going to be in at the D23 Expo, so we thought we'd do something a little bit different this week. So let's jump into it, Kasey. So do you want to kind of jump in and kind of give us what you wanted to talk about, really?
Yeah, sure. So I figured what we'd do is put together a list of 12 titles, 3 coming up next year, and then 3 that have been this year so far, and 3 still to come this year. And then just battle it out, I guess. And then in the comment section, you tell me which team won.
It's kind of going to be interesting. I feel like everything right now, like with like Netflix has had such a weird year, hasn't it? It's kind of been all over the place with just it kind of a bit of a bumpy year, and I think that's then impacted on every streaming service. And and I'm looking at like now like what's happened with Netflix is kind of like in some way a bit of a shake-up. Was probably needed because the growth of Netflix was just not able to. None of them were able to go as big as they did. And I was just wondering, before we jump into like that, do you think this is going to have an impact on how much content Netflix is going to be making in the future, or are they going to still carry on at the same speed?
So I think it's going to smooth out a little bit more than what we expected. I think they're still going to be putting heavy investment in territories that they think are going to grow more, and I actually think that's going to be something we see across the board. But yeah, as you say, where Netflix leads, everyone tends to follow, and the stock price has not been kind to any streamer this year because it's not based on just pure sub growth anymore. It's sort of based on everything else, in which case Disney is pretty well stocked for that because they've got all the other revenue streams. But having said that, I wouldn't say that the box office is that secure for Disney at the moment. I think you could argue there's a case titles like Lightyear may have suffered because of Disney Plus, because people got used to Pixar movies going straight on there. So everything's up in the air. I still don't think we've got a new normal yet as well, because viewership is going to be down across the board, I imagine, as people want to go outside and touch grass again after the pandemic. So yeah, I think it's all up in the air, but I don't see Netflix's investment changing that much. I feel like they're going to be more precise in what they exactly they're going after, as opposed to a sort of general broad slate.
Yeah, because it always feels like with me, like Netflix is throwing out so many. I think because they had to essentially try and catch up like a 50 years to studios as quickly as possible, and I don't know if like now they've reached like that 50% mark, they might slow down a little bit. I know like with like Disney, sometimes I wonder like if they could actually get all their studios together and actually realize what sometimes it's like you guys are putting out a lot of stuff all over the place. If you actually like looked at it more as a proper single slate, you might not need to do quite as much and you could cut back a bit.
Yeah, it's really tricky because like it's always that argument of quantity over quality, isn't it? And you could argue Marvel has now sort of fell into that trap almost. So yeah, I think balancing act is going to be good. Also, keeping churn down is another huge factor. The reason why we're getting a Marvel title every quarter at the moment is to keep people engaged, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
yes, but yeah, so let's jump into the first one, which is the easier one of what. So it's like our top 3 titles. So I'm going to be obviously representing the Disney Plus side. You're going to be representing Netflix. So do you want to start off?
Sure. Yeah, I've picked two relatively Disney Plus comparisons. So I'm going to kick off with Lost Ollie. It came out just a week or 2 ago, and it's absolutely superb. It's a 4-episode miniseries. It uses Industrial Light and Magic, which is obviously a very much Disney camp. But yeah, it's just 4 episodes of a little bunny that gets lost and has to find its owner. It's it'll tear your heart out and stuff it back in and make you feel all warm inside by the end, which is
yeah, I haven't heard of that one before. That's the first time and I always feel like that's one of the issues with sometimes with Netflix of trying to get that word out. Because I remember like with Heartstopper this summer back at the beginning, that was like one that just seemed to just naturally just got the word out there, and I checked it out and stuff. But yeah, so I think like
it's a real tragedy that this one isn't blowing up in the way it should. It's absolutely superb.
Yeah, so I'm going to pick one from my side now. I'm going to go way back to the beginning of like sort of the spring, Turning Red.
Mm.
I think this one was a really, really good movie. It's kind of one of those situations of it had a great story. Being a kid of that age, I kind of connected with it good. I love the idea that they touched on female like periods and stuff, but they didn't go in like heavy. It was very much metaphors. Adults will pick it up. You can kind of, but obviously it got picked up on that. And it was kind of way blown out of proportion. But that was kind of like that movie of like that could have done quite nicely at the box office. But I think a lot of people forget that Disney had to like make a decision like 3-4 months before that when like Omicron was out, and they kind of had to make that decision. But for me, it's definitely like one of the top films of the year. That's a Disney Plus original. So I wanted to throw that one in there because I thought that was such a great fun movie.
Yeah, and it looked gorgeous too, didn't it?
Yeah.
On the TV. Yeah, looks absolutely superb. Yeah, I don't know whether that would have been one I went to see in the cinema, but it's definitely something I'd check out on Disney Plus for sure.
Okay, over to you for your next one for Netflix.
Yeah, I'm going to go for another big animation hit, which was The Sea Beast that came out this July. It's from a former Disney alum, so I think it fits nicely into this category. Absolutely stunning visuals. I thought the story was a little bit, the pacing was a little strange. It should have stacked a bit more at the front to get you hooked, but it's stayed in the top 10s pretty much all summer, in the kids' top 10s at least. And it's got a great voice cast, great story, and is one of the biggest animation movies Netflix has ever put out. And I think it really is showing that they're in competition with Disney's own studios now.
Well, I always look at it a little bit because it's always funny because everyone's like, well, Disney make all these big animated movies and no one touches them. I'm going like, well, Universal and DreamWorks have been around for like 20, 30 plus years. There's always been strong competition, and more competition from other studios makes Disney stuff better. That's how I always look at it. You know, if there was nobody else making stuff, that's when Disney would get a bit complacent. So to me, it's like, with Netflix and Apple and everybody else making really good animation stuff, that's going to continue to push the whole genre, not only genre, but just the whole method of using animation.
Yeah, and remember, a lot of these studios have been like with former Disney employees. You know, the ones that fund Fuel and Apple at the moment is John Lasseter, right? So I think Disney's been good for all the streaming services one way or another for training everyone up. So thank you very much.
That's it. Now for my next film, I'm going to allow, obviously with me being international, I'm going to be including Star stuff because it is just part of Disney Plus here. It's not anything special or different, but so I'm going to go with Prey because I thought this was one of the best movies 20th put out this year. It was a fantastic addition into the Predator franchise. It really caught a lot of people off guard. There was so much good. It was kind of at that Netflix vibe, whereas it got a social media boost because everyone went, "Oh, it's good." It was just like, and everyone could watch over the weekend, and it just really kind of blew. And I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was such a great, like, it was like a proper action movie, like I grew up on from the 80s and the 90s, which we don't see as many of now.
Yeah, it was not bloated like the other Predator movies has been. It's just superb from start to finish. Really good. Whether it would have done well in cinema, that's another good question. I don't know. But yeah, it's one of the few times that I've tuned in Disney Plus day one for something that isn't a Marvel or Star Wars show, and there needs to be far more of those. So great pick.
And your final pick from the ones we've already had this year?
Yeah, I'm going to go from The Lincoln Lawyer, which is and I'm going to try and tie it back to Disney because it's something that you would expect to see on ABC or something like that. And one of the main reasons why Netflix was big in the first place, you know, you used to be able to jump in onto a show and just binge it from start to finish. It's got a familiar feel because it's just a lawyer show at the end of the day, you know, adapting a great book, but it really hit the mark for me, and I hope Netflix does more types of shows like this because I think they're broad and in this case superbly well written as well.
And I'm very surprised because I thought it was a shoe in there. One of these three was going to be Stranger Things because I was just like,
damn, yes, it should have been. Yeah, it should have been.
I was like that. I'm going to be. I mean, that to me was like one of the biggest best shows I watched all summer. And I mean, I've been watching it every year the new season comes, but that fourth season was
God, you
incredible.
caught me out. You've added another one to my.
I'm gonna give you. I'll give you that bonus because that was. I mean, that was like the biggest hit of the year. I mean, it was an amazing series. Because I thought season 3 was a bit, yeah. And I can't even remember what happened. Where season 4, I mean, me and my wife just binged out both different volumes like within a couple of days. We just loved it, and they were long episodes.
Yeah, and it hit all the right marks again, didn't it? You know, it almost felt like it was going back to the thing that made season 1 so special. You know, great characters, and I can't believe I didn't think of that. Maybe I'm going to try and make the excuse that I'm trying to be too clever and think of stuff that are beyond. What most.
I think also for me as well, of like being a kid from the 80s, like Stranger Things. I get it. I grew up on those movies and shows, and it just. It does have that nostalgia, but it's fresh, and I just love them, the music, and so Stranger Things I think actually, to be honest, I think if I was doing like a top 10 of the year, that show would be in it, because for me it was an incredible one. So my
give Lost Ollie a shout out, but that's my excuse.
That's the thing, you're throwing some light on something else. For my third and final one from what's been added this year, I'm gonna go for Moonlight. I adored this series from top to. I would have liked it a little bit longer. I could have done with a little bit more of the Stranger Things with a little bit longer episodes to kind of stretch out that finale, because it felt a little bit rushed. But I loved everything about this series. A brand new character, Oscar Isaac obviously being a huge star. It felt like a movie. It felt like I was watching a Marvel movie. And it was, to me, it's in that top level of the Marvel shows of them. But I just really loved that series. It was like, it wasn't even a second thought of just like, that is the one for me that I've loved the most, probably since Loki. I mean, it's been I thought that was an amazing series.
Yeah, I haven't actually caught up with that one yet. I don't know what was happening in my life at the time, but I think I just sort of said I'm going to have to skip over one or two of these, and I think sadly that was the one. But I've heard it sort of siloed enough where it can stand on its own 2 feet, whereas I find that a lot of the other MCU shows, they either have a great premise that ends with it having to walk back into the old familiar tale.
Moonlight very much is singular. It doesn't really have any interconnection really with the rest of the MCU, and that's good. I like that about it. I don't mind a little bit of crossover like we're doing currently, like with She-Hulk. I think that works if you're leaning in on it fully and you completely go. It's like, whereas opposed to just kind of like little nods and little Easter eggs a little bit. But definitely for me, that one was one of the best ones. So what's up next?
So we're going to look at the most anticipated titles for the remainder of the year. So this is everything between sort of now and December 31st. I'll throw it to you. You go first this time.
Okay, so my big one is going to be Star Wars Andor. Andor, a 12 episode, a more gritty Star Wars story, getting 3 episodes on the 21st of September. I'm loving the fact that they're doing that. They're kind of really letting us get in on it, and I think they're finding that system seems to be working quite nicely, of like dropping a few episodes and then stretch it out. But this feels like, I always like Rogue One, and this one just feels, I mean, this was like one of the very first Disney Plus originals, and that's way back in like 2018. I mean, I got articles on the website going back, back when we started, and like this was like, well, there's going to be a Rogue One, and it's like, like here we are, like 4+ years later. And we're finally getting it. And it's just like, so that one is definitely for me. And I think that was probably one of the ones of the whole year. I was much more looking forward to that than Obi-Wan Kenobi or Boba Fett. This one was the one I was most excited for.
I'm quite looking forward to this one. Obi-Wan was a bit of a disappointment to me. I thought it was a bit over too bloated. But Andor, is a good test for using original characters, that aren't really connected to the main 6, which I think's I think's been a problem thus far. And it looks stunning, and they've clearly put a lot of work into that one.
Okay, up first for you.
Yeah, I'm going to go Knives Out 2 or Glass Onion and Knives Out Conspiracy. Mystery, I think it's called. I think they picked this one up from Lionsgate, and they're going to do the second and third movie. I also think it's going to be a huge test because we still don't know whether it's getting actual theatrical or proper release. So this one's going to be a real tester, I think, for Netflix's movie strategy moving forward. And it's just got an absolutely huge cast in it. And the first movie was superb. But whether they can capture the same magic in the second one is, we'll have to see.
Yeah, for me, this is the one for me for Netflix. This is the one I'm really looking for. I love the first film. I do like that kind of how Agatha Christie kind of Death in Paradise kind of feel to these kind of movies. So this is one I'm looking forward to. It's interesting, like with this theatrical thing of like, if they could send it out to out to cinemas, right? I mean, I don't think a week or 2 weeks is really enough to kind of. I think the 45-day window. I don't know if it needs a little bit longer than that. I'll be honest, but I do think was it Grey Man? They only did like a weekend. It wasn't very long, was it?
Yeah. I had to do a 2-hour round trip just to see it the week before. Yeah.
Yes,
and it's only in select theaters too, so that most of the main cinema chains don't carry it. So.
Yes, and it's definitely one of those things when you're not in London, they're trying to of getting up for these things. But so I definitely feel like Knives Out. Well, it's such a weird name. Onion, was it Onion?
Glass Onion, yeah. Knives Out Mystery. I think it's Mystery. Yeah. Or Knives Out 2, as everyone else is going to call it.
Yeah.
But if no movie is going to get a theatrical release at Netflix, I think if any movie's going to get one, it will be this one. So,
and they got to make that money back.
Well, sure.
Because I mean, was it 400 million or something? They paid
something like that. Whether it all got spent on just buying it out front, and with a cast like this, it works slightly different because there isn't back end, so you're having to pay a huge cast bill up front. Hopefully it's a good movie too.
Right, so for my next pick, I'm going to go with another Lucasfilm one. I'm looking forward to Willow, which is going to be starting at the end of November. I love the original movie. I don't necessarily know if we needed a Willow sequel. It was kind of, but it's nice just to see kind of something a little bit. I'm looking forward to watching something a little bit different. We've had the Marvel and the Star Wars done a lot. It'll be nice to watch a big, epic, expensive show on Disney Plus that's not Marvel or Star Wars. And this one is kind of like, this one could be a sleeper for the winter of just like, this one could be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to learning more about it.
Yeah, and I have absolutely no idea about any of the IP because I've never seen the original movie, so this will be something I'd dive in first time. So it'd be interesting to see whether it's just made for the fans of the old one, or whether they can introduce into the whole whole new generation to it.
Yeah, should be good. So what about your next choice?
So I'm surprised you haven't. Well, actually, I'm not surprised you haven't picked Pinocchio yet, but I'm going to pick Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, the new stop motion one, which is going toe to toe with Disney's Tom Hanks version. I'm personally way more excited for Netflix's vision, which I think is going to be a lot darker
when is the Netflix one out?
December 9th. So it's early December. It might. I think it's getting a theatrical release as well, but I think that one's a lot shorter.
Yes. So Pinocchio came out on Disney Plus Day, so just a couple of days ago when we're releasing this one. I have seen it. I watched it yesterday. It's kind of all right. I didn't really. It's very much a case of the original movie, and with a few extra minutes, and it's just a new life. It's very, and I wasn't a huge fan of the original movie. So it kind of, and there's that kind of thing. If you do the same story again and you didn't really like the first one that much, it's not really. It was a bit like, it looks fine. It looks great. Pinocchio looks great in it. It definitely is. There's some really great scenes in it, but it wouldn't have been on my anticipated one because like I said, I don't mind the original one, but if I never watched it again, the original, I'm talking about the 1940s one. I never would be that worried about it. It's fine, but I'll be interested to see because Del Toro can make some amazing stuff, and he makes some good ones. So it'll be interesting to see how differently it compares. So it'd be nice to see a different take on it. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Yes, yeah, and it very much is a different take. And as I say, it's been years in the making. And Del Toro rarely misses. So very much looking forward to it.
Okay, so for my final pick, I'm going to go for National Treasure: Edge of History, which is a brand new Disney series coming at some point. As obviously we don't know the date as of yet. I love the original National Treasure movies. This one looks a little bit different. Again, I'm looking forward to watching something a little bit different on Disney Plus. So this one was one like, that's kind of high on my sort of watch list of what I'm looking forward to myself.
Is there any other Marvel shows coming out at the end of this year?
No, because once we got She-Hulk out the way, which ends in October, there's there is no more. There's probably going to be a Halloween special that will be announced at the
Sure.
D23, and there's the holiday special from Guardians of the Galaxy, but the
Okay.
next big series dropping is going to be next next year we're going to have what's it, What If Season 2, and the next big live series is Secret Invasion. And I actually think it's going to be good for Marvel to have maybe a few months of just a little bit less.
Yeah,
I think it does need that.
And it keeps all eyes on Black Panther 2 at that point too. So you're not cannibalizing it. So my final pick, and again I've tried to weave it in with Disney here, is a little bit is Ryan Murphy's Jeffrey Dahmer limited series. With Evan Peters playing Jeffrey Dahmer. We don't know the release date. I'm been told that it's might be eyeing a surprise release at the end of this month, but we'll see. It's definitely going to be here by Halloween. But yeah, Ryan Murphy has had a troubled time at Netflix, away from Fox.
What do you mean? I just thought he worked at FX and just occasionally threw some stuff on Netflix.
So I think his second half of his Netflix deal is going to be putting out a lot more broader stuff and hopefully better as well. So hopefully he goes out with his deal. I mean, it sounds like he's going back to Disney's camp. So, but this seems more in line with sort of like his American Crime Story series for FX. So and Jeffrey Dahmer's such a strange character too, so it's gonna be interesting to see that.
It'd be interesting because I'm kind of hit and miss on his stuff. I like the American Crime Story stuff more than the American Horror Story things. I'm looking forward to like the feud one. I need to watch the original one. But it's that kind of thing of it does seem like he's done more on the Disney side than on the Netflix side because of this some kind of contract deal where he can work on existing properties. And there's like, I think there's a put a colon in the name. It seems to be a bit of a technical get around clause.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue Netflix hasn't got his money worth. I mean, they basically told him to make anything he wanted, and in the first half, that is exactly what he did. And you know, there's artistic achievement in a lot of the stuff that he's put out, but it just hasn't got the broad appeal of some of his FX and Fox stuff. So him leaning back into what makes him great over there is probably going to pay dividends for Netflix at the end.
Right. Yeah. So that sounds pretty cool. So what next are we going to be talking about?
So I'm going to pick 3 movies coming up in 2023, and I'll kick off with Spaceman of Bohemia. I am pretty sure no one's heard of this before. So it's an Adam Sandler movie, but as we all know, Adam Sandler sort of got out of his idiot phase, I'd say, and more into his sort of Oscar-looking phase. And I don't know whether this one's going to be an Oscar contender, but it's based on a really good book, and it's a sci-fi twist. So he plays an astronaut who meets a spider, I believe, a talking spider in space. It's going to be completely batshit and either utterly awful or really, really good, because there seems to be no in between for Sandler at the moment.
See, I will say I am one of the fans of Adam Sandler's stupid side. I love, all his movies that I liked a lot of his stuff. Some of his Netflix ones have been a little. There was the one he did with where they were pretending to be in Africa, some holiday thing with Jennifer Anderson.
Oh, Murder Mystery, yes.
Yeah, so then he had one with a family, I think it was as well, where they were they won a trip. So it's been a bit hit and miss. I like the one. I think he also did one where he was a shoe keeper or something. So I have been watching his stuff, but I always like Click and Happy Madison.
Yes,
and all those kind of stuff.
Early stuff.
Billy. I think I go in with his stuff a little bit more open minded because I did like his style. But there's like I say, if he changes it and he's a bit older, it doesn't sometimes work.
Yeah, and I'm also now shooting myself in the foot because Hustle, his movie this year, the sports NBA one, was absolutely superb. So another one I'm gutted I didn't put in the original list. But this one I don't know. It's like completely throwing it up in the air, and then we'll see what comes down at the end of it. So I'm looking forward to it.
Right, so my first pick is going to be The Haunted Mansion. So this one is going to be coming out. I believe this one is for March the 10th next year. I am a huge lover of the attraction. It's one of my favorite rides. I love doing at Disneyland. New take on it, a little bit different. Hopefully, we see a little bit of this coming soon. yeah, to me, it was just like Haunted Mansion. I'm sold. The name was just like, I know the Eddie Murphy movie was terrible, but I even like rewatching that one. So the Haunted Mansion for me is just like, and it's just again nice just to do something that is away.
Who's in that one? Sorry.
I'm gonna have to look. It's let's just see here. So we've got Owen Wilson, we've got Rosario Dawson, we've got Danny DeVito, Jared Leto, and Jamie Lee Curtis. So yes, it's got quite a few. It's got a big cast in it as ghosts and stuff. I'm really looking forward to this one. This one's going to be a lot of fun.
Cool. So the second pick, I'm going The Electric State. It's another one from Joe and Anthony Russo, who just put out The Grey Man on Netflix. Again, this one's got an absolute monster budget. Whether you argue they're doing well with that budget is another story, but it's using Millie Bobby Brown, who's obviously from Stranger Things, so it's got a nice Netflix tie back to it, and the book is absolutely superb. It's about a girl with a robot trying to get back to her father across like a world that's been ravaged and post-apocalyptic. It's a superb book. But yeah, a really interesting one. There's absolutely huge cast. I think Chris Pratt's in it too, and then a slew of other big name stars too, as well.
See, for me, one of the things I'd like to do, like on a Sunday afternoon, we'll either like catch up on like the latest big movie release on like on Netflix or on Amazon or Paramount, or we'll rent a movie. So we kind of Sunday afternoons just become a little bit. Sometimes for me, it's just being able to go, right, I don't need to think about this one. I can just relax. I can just enjoy it and see what everybody else is doing. So these are the kind of things that, for me, of like that is a movie like, I'll check that out over the weekend when that one drops. Those are the kind of movies for me.
Yeah, and they're spending a fortune on it, so why not?
Yes, sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad.
Yeah.
Because for me, one of the big ones, I love the one with Ryan Reynolds, the Adam Project. That was such a great Netflix film. I thought that was great. My next film is the Indiana Jones movie. We know nothing about it. It's just a new Indiana Jones film. Yeah, it's Indiana Jones. I mean, it's like it's got that. This is the advantage that Disney does have, isn't it? You can be like, this movie's coming out on this book, and I can just have to say like 2 words, and like you instantly know what and that is the power of IP.
Yes, instant brand recognition, and it's good to see Lucasfilm doing other stuff beyond Star Wars as well. So.
Yeah, it's kind of odd with Indiana. I'm gonna admit, I kind of feel like it's that kind of thing of it's maybe time to like give it to somebody else and like reboot the franchise. But hopefully in some way, I mean, this one might have time traveling. I don't know what they're doing. But we had aliens in the last one, so I mean, we're at a point now where we don't really have to worry too much. But I'm really looking.
Is that one getting a theatrical release? Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. Well, this is the kind of the thing again with Disney of now, especially. All their big movies, obviously the big expensive ones that most people afford to get that theatrical release. It's only really the B ones. And I don't know if there's going to be less of them moving forward. I feel like they might shift some over. I feel like with some of like the Searchlight films and stuff that, they seem to be leaning back into the idea of, no, we'll just put it out in cinemas. If it can make a few $1 million or it brings money back in and it's worth more on streaming. I do feel, and also with that HBO deal, when that ends, that might free things up a little bit. But I do feel like the ones that they are releasing, I mean, they haven't really given dates or times or anything. Hopefully we find out a little bit more at the D23 Expo, but in generally, so most of the ones are all big theatrical ones.
Yeah, because if you said it was straight to Disney Plus, that would probably be like, okay then.
I don't think they would do that one. But what's your next pick?
So my final pick for this category is The Killer. I'm a big David Fincher fan, so I'm looking forward to seeing this. We know absolutely nothing about it, beyond its main cast, which is Michael Fassbender and Tilda Swinton. But it's based on a comic book. David Fincher is my main driving force as to why this might be great. And it's, again, monster budget. But yeah, I think it's another one that's going to just appear out of nowhere on people's radar and hopefully do a good job.
So for my next pick, I've gone for a Marvel film. Now, it's kind of difficult to pick, really, because there's 4 of them. And trying to pick one, it's kind of hard. So we've got like the Marvels, we've got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the new Ant-Man Quantumania, and Blade. So trying to pick one of them to go for. It's like Blade I'm interested in because I think Blade might be my pick because again, we haven't seen Blade since Wesley Snipes. I love those movies. I
Me
love the
too.
character. It's something new. Could be a bit more horror-y, leading into a different era. So it's a bit like, I think that for me, Blade is the one, like, that one could be very interesting.
Yeah, I think Guardians of the Galaxy would be a more easy pick, I think, and a more like if you were putting money on it. Blade could go one or two ways. I think if you pee off the wrong fans, I think that one's going to get absolutely caned. But
That just seems to be happening to everything.
Yeah, some things are better off left alone, and I don't know whether Blade is one of them. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird because I think in some ways, because Marvel's got so many different characters and stuff. Blade, I mean, and Blade was kind of like one, especially the first Blade film, was one of the very good comic book hero movies of the 90s. I loved it. I love that one there, and obviously they went on as the series went on, but. In some ways, I don't think sometimes a lot of younger people growing up quite realize how much rubbish we had to sit through in the 90s. In terms of superhero movies, it's like they weren't all like it is now, where you get good ones every time. You know, we did have some bad ones, but yeah, so Blade's definitely for me. So, yeah. So have we got one more left?
Yeah, we've got one category left, which is the top 3 TV shows or series in 2023.
Okay, so do you want to start off with that one?
Yeah, I'm going to go Avatar: Last Airbender. Again, Netflix hasn't had the best track record when it's come to bringing animation into live action. This one's using all the latest tech and it's got a pretty decent cast. And from what we've heard, it's not too bad. I don't know whether it's going to stick to the main story completely or diverge a bit. There was obviously problems with the creators and whatnot, but this one has huge potential. Avatar: The Last Airbender is a beloved cartoon amongst pretty large swathe of the population. So yeah, this one's got potential.
Yeah. See, I'm a fan of the other Avatar, so I've never seen the other.
Okay.
I've not seen the last. I was like, oh no, Avatar's 2022, and then Avatar's 2024. So I'm gonna miss it out on the 2023 ones because I'm really looking forward to the new film. But yeah, I've never watched the last Avatar. I know obviously about it. I know, but I've never actually watched it.
Yeah, and it had a terrible live action movie before, so it might be one of them ones that just can't be translated into live action. But yeah, we'll see. Is probably the best one.
Okay, so I'm going for my next pick, which is Secret Invasion, which is the next. It's kind of the next big live action series to drop on Disney Plus after She-Hulk. So this is coming in early 2023. I was a big fan of the comic book series because it's basically scrolls have kind of infiltrated everywhere, and you've kind of got Nick Fury kind of running around, and it kind of has a whole like shield element. This is one that's like for me, just like I'm just loving it. I'm just can't wait to see this one. This one's just got so many, and it could impact on the bigger MCU, and it's got a big, and it just feels like it's got that like continuation of the movies onto it.
Yeah, cool. And I know absolutely nothing about it, so I will be going into that one cold. I imagine.
Okay, and your next pick?
It's from David Benioff and DB Wise, who did Game of Thrones. It's The Free Body Problem. The budget I've heard on this one is absolutely enormous. It's been filming for nearly a year now. It's based on a Chinese book about the humans' first contact with aliens. Yeah, a great cast and a lot of emphasis being put on it over there. Whether it gets out next year is another story. I think it will be towards the end, if at all. But yeah, absolutely huge. But the big question mark for this one is whether it's going to be too complicated for the masses.
Yeah, that's always an issue, isn't it, with these kind of things of whether or not it does translate well. So for me, I'm going to go into the Star Wars territory now, and I go with Ahsoka. So this is going to be like a continuation of the Mandalorian time zone with Ahsoka. I'm guessing we're going to see Ezra in here and Sabine. And as a big fan of the Star Wars Rebels series, this is like just a continuation of that era. So it's like it's got everything in it that I like. It's kind of like it's just more Star Wars, but it's close enough. And then if we got Fawn in there as well, you just got all characters that's just I know and I like, and seeing them on live screen on live action for the first time. This is just like, yeah, this one sounds a lot of fun. I'm just really excited about this one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And then my final one, which I'm going to regret because I actually don't think there's any chance of it coming out next year. So I'm going to say it anyway, but it's Horizon Zero Dawn. It's based on the video game.
Yeah.
It's got a great team behind it, and hopefully it translates well over to screen. I think it will. I think that one's going to be easier than most. It just depends on the budget, I should imagine, and getting it looking good.
No, I have completed both games, so I am completely in on Horizon Zero Dawn. I love the character Aloy. I love the world that she's in with the big dino robots, and just the whole idea of like the story of, you know, being set thousands of years in the future, and you know it's on Earth, but everything's been wrecked. It is an amazing story, and if they can, it's getting the right. I mean, I think it's better as a series than maybe as a movie. I feel like with video games, it's very difficult for them to be turned into movies because trying to condense. I mean, I just finished Days Gone the other day. You know, I put 40 hours into that game. You can't squeeze that into a 2-hour story very easily. And I feel like with Horizon Zero Dawn, I think a series might give a little bit more scope and give that one to go.
Yeah, although I'm very much again going to regret saying that because there's zero chance that is probably coming out next year. But I'd like to be wrong.
So you did that one. So I'm going to do one as well that might not necessarily hit in 2023 as well. It might slip into 2024, and that's Percy Jackson and the Olympians, a brand new big budget series. They're filming it right now in Vancouver. Big cast. Obviously got Netflix's Adam Project. You know, that was that couldn't have been better timing for them to that movie to come out, and then the week after, Disney go, hello, yeah, he's ours now. Yeah. It was just like, but yeah. So I'm really looking for. I have never read the books. I've never watched the movies, and I don't want to watch the movies now. I want to go in fresh for this new series and come in blind and like not compare it to anything. And that's kind of been my way of looking at this series now, but. If there might be a hope that it slides into 2023, but I think it might be more likely the tail end or the beginning of 2024. But this one for me is hearing so much about it. There's so much excitement from the fans, and I just want again something new and fresh and original for, on Disney Plus. I know it's been 2 movies before, but just something big and epic that isn't Marvel and Star Wars.
Yeah, it's basically their, you know, I would compare it to like their going to be Disney's Harry Potter, and it has Christmassy vibes. So fingers crossed that it will come out Christmas.
Yes. So that one's definitely fun. And is that your free or have you?
That's all free. Yeah.
It definitely feels like, you know, there's a lot of stuff to be excited for. There's so many other shows and movies and stuff coming out next year, and again, it just feels like Netflix has kind of, you know. They are pushing forward on it all, and they are coming out with some great stuff. I just wish they promoted it a little bit more. Does that kind of bug you a bit?
A little bit. I mean, it's always tricky, right? Because you know that I think a lot of that then stems into the debate around weekly and dropping all at once. And I think half the trouble is because their slate is so big. I think you can't adequately market enough, even if you wanted to. You know what defines good marketing at this point. You know, it's not like a theatrical where you're held to a budget on that. So yes, it does bug me a little bit. I wish they would slow down on some things, but on the whole, I think they've got to keep it going because you know they're in a very, very competitive market where everyone's competing for time, and the second you take your foot off the gas pedal, you know you're falling behind. So
yeah, I mean, I've noticed like this last year with Disney, especially here in the UK with Disney Plus, with having the additional stuff from Star, you know, like coming up, you know, we've got like Candy one week, we've got the Bear the next week after, you know, we've got the Old Man, so we're getting like constant new shows dropping for adults as just as much as for and I love the fact now, like we're on Disney Plus this summer, you know, we have pretty much a new episode of something dropping every day. You know, like Tuesday to pretty much Monday to Friday, we're having new content dropping day, and I quite like having everything on different days rather than it all dropping on the Wednesday. I think because I'm more used to because I'm looking at it, but it's like I always feel like with Netflix they'll put out a trailer and it kind of feels like that's all they do, and then whereas Disney are much more like, here's 25 trailers and we're going to drop one every other day, and here's a clip with 5 seconds more in it, and here's some character posters, and here's and the premiere, and they kind of they've got a system, because I quite often see it funny. People go, they've not advertised the movie. Like, no, they've done the same they do for every movie. It just depends on how well it picks up on social media. They kind of got a routine.
Yeah, I think me and you are probably absolutely horrible barometers of how well marketing performs, because we're indulged in it constantly. But yeah, it is a problem. But there's there's all of those Disney Plus shows. I probably couldn't name them that are coming out every week. So I think it's about what world you're immersed in, and I think Disney is primed for that, because people are way more fanatic with that.
I have two barometers of where I feel like when I know that a series or a movie is going to a bigger audience. If I see an advert on a bus, if I'm driving, if I see a bus go by with the logo on, with a poster on it, then it's like, okay, they're going to that next level of promotion. Mm-hmm. Also, if there is an advert like on mainstream television, especially like, if it's an advert in the middle of, this morning, or an advert in the evening in the news, you're like, oh, okay, like Obi-Wan Kenobi, or, it's like, you can kind of go, okay, they're going out for a mass audience. Or if somebody's appearing on the one show, there's always that kind of feeling like, okay, we're going after mainstream audiences. That's where I go, okay, that's where the promotion's gone to that next level.
Yeah, and it's hard to know which ones to prioritize, right? Because Lost Ollie, I would have loved to see more promotion for that one, but quite clearly they decided to focus on the Sandman or some of the movies they've had this month. So it's about priority. Unfortunately for creators, that's the case as well, because no creator wants their show to be buried on a streaming service. But
it's just taking off.
Yeah, well, yes, yeah. At least, Netflix does do that, but not for shows that you've heard of. So
no,
yeah,
it's just been a very, very strange year, like between like everything going on with HBO Max and Discovery, and then Netflix, and then now we've got stuff going on like with Paramount stuff. It's a very interesting thing. But I wanted to ask you while I got you here is, obviously Netflix are introducing an ad tier at some point. We don't know quite when that one's going to be dropping at the time of recording. But do you think that's going to be a good thing for Netflix, and how do you think it's going to help them?
So I mean, it opens it up to lower tier subscribers, I guess. And then possibly could help keep churn down. How well it does across the world, I don't know. I think the pricing strategy is going to be very different to Disney Plus. It seems like Disney Plus has tried to raise the waters for everyone, and hope that everyone either goes up to the top or they can recover enough from the ads. I think it's good for choice. I think it's inevitable that everyone's getting in on this. So yeah, I think if it keeps Netflix competitive, then it's ultimately good for anyone paying the larger premium.
But I think the thing is now, because in some ways, and I know from my point, like it's like, and everyone will be like, well, Netflix are doing it too. So it's been like the best way to go. They're doing it, so the whole system's changed. Of like, Netflix is doing it as well as Disney, so therefore it's like, look, it's there. It's an option if you want it. Because I kind of view of like for me, I mean, we don't necessarily have the option here yet, but like, I maybe would go like, well, I don't really watch enough Paramount Plus, so that ads might be a better option. Or I personally don't watch a huge amount of Netflix, so the ads wouldn't bother. I think my wife would be really annoyed because she watches Netflix. That would be like, that's her number one thing she watches in the all the big shows on. So she would be like, I don't want to watch the ads. But like, again, it's just a different level. You might feel the same, like, well, if you're only coming in for a Star Wars show, that ads might be a cheaper option for you.
Yes. Choice is ultimately, I think I'd rather pay to not have ads at all and just churn out rather than drop out onto a lower tier. But there's also going to be problems with perception and how these ads interact. If it's a horrible experience and you're watching 20 minutes of ads, I'd almost compare it to like, going watching television nowadays. The second something gets good, you're interrupted with a 5-10 minute ad break. And
it's when you're watching live TV, and my wife will go, "Can you speed up? We're watching live. We can't go. We have to sit." And you kind of forget because we always do it, we catch up and stuff. But it's very much. I did feel like with Disney, it was a bit of an odd one with their price point, because they didn't go low. They were just like, no, we're going to keep the price the same, and then go up. It was almost like, look, price rises are coming in. We were really cheap to begin with, because Netflix has got. It's like, I mean, I'm on the most basic Netflix package. I'm still in SD. I mean, why they still offer that as the basic package?
Well, quite, yeah, exactly. I think that's the one that's going to get rotated out, if anything. So I reckon that won't get bumped to HD, but you'll just have to put up with ads. That would be my guess.
It's kind of an odd one, because then ultimately there is going to be some price rises coming, because it's just inflation. You know, it is what it is, and it's that kind of thing. I feel like if the option's there, it's up to you. But also, like we've said before, Wall Street and stuff are looking at them going, well, how much money are you making? And I feel like the ads, I mean, I saw they were like talking about the CPM for Netflix. I'm going, whew, that's high. You don't get anywhere near like that on YouTube.
No, you certainly don't. But yeah, that is what you get when you get premium. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I wish they had announced it a bit sooner, or perhaps at least not dug their heels in that they weren't going to have it for all these years. I think it makes them look like they're making a very rash U-turn, and that could be the case because they're just being forced to. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I personally am not going to be taking much advantage out of these ads. I mean, Channel 4 is probably the good example. I've experienced Hulu ads as well, where you basically get the same 6 rolling around, and it's like torture.
Channel 4 on demand for me was the most painful experience, because every third ad it would crash. And you would, and then it didn't matter what device I was on. It would. This is why when we moved, it was like, well, we're just getting Sky because I can't put up with 4 on demand. I was literally like, because every time you used to fast forward, it would then have to make you. So if it crashed, you'd have to restart it, and then you'd have to go through. If you're trying to speed forward, it would make you sit through all of the ad breaks that you would have missed. And it was it was a nightmare for the 2 years that we were on the system. I was just like, that is the worst case.
Yeah, and I think Hulu's got a pretty bad reputation for its ads as well. So whether whether that one eventually gets churned into Disney Plus, I think that would be wise. But quite clearly, all these companies can't be losing money on streaming forever. So Disney Plus has to bump their prices up. I imagine that there's going to be other perks. I think there was something like an Amazon Prime equivalent.
They've been. I think, to be honest, it makes a lot of sense. Try and offer you 10% off at Shop Disney. Offer you some discounts off cruise lines, and basically get more money out your pocket. They seem to be doing very well with my wallet. It's just got a direct debit to them at the minute. It's just like because I know, like you say about like the Netflix store, you quite often commented on how bad like Netflix seems to be at like trying to get people over to it.
Yeah, it's one of them things. They keep projects siloed well enough to the point where they can just bin it quite easily rather than going full all in on stuff. And I wish there was a bit more commitment that end, but I think it's just the nature of how fast Netflix has had to grow and experiment with things. And I just think that they just cut stuff off too quickly.
And also, I mean, Disney sometimes can be a bit careful with its merchandise for new products. It will kind of sometimes hold back a little bit. But also, like, this whole idea of them having like QR codes and Shop Disney links straight in Disney Plus and stuff. It's like, well, it kind of makes sense, if you can sell some action figures and some dolls and some plush and stuff. I mean, I feel like that's where the ad tier actually for them opens it up for them to get more money out of it.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Yeah, that makes, it's... they call that.
I mean, I can't say anything about that. All these toys behind me.
Yeah, I think Netflix have tried to go more of the sort of like the Supreme model thus far, where it's sort of like exclusive drops of stuff, and then once you've missed out on it, you've missed out on it, which is completely different to Disney that wants you to be, as you say, just buying constantly.
They kind of have. I think also it's just again, IP just makes it better. And I think like Netflix is, I feel like Strange Things is like one of the only ones really that they kind of got, because I have seen people walking by with the Hairfire t-shirt on and stuff, and it's like, you see people in the t-shirt.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere. Squid Game maybe come close, but agreed. They need to do way more work in that department.
But there we go. So it's great to be speaking to you today, and just kind of again, we just wanted to have a little bit of fun, a little bit of talk about kind of like Netflix and Disney Plus and stuff. But obviously as well, Kasey, where can they find you?
So our website is whatsonnetflix.com, and I am on Kasey __Moore on Twitter.
Yep. So on that note, guys, thank you so much for watching. Just a quick bit of a shout out as well to our Patrons and YouTube channel members. Thank you so much for your support. So big thank you to Chuck, David, Manmad, Raphael, Adam, Dana, Ricky, Dave, my VCR still works, Bina, Joshua, Dawn, Martin, and Sarah. And also we've got Babka, Paul, Daniel, Elliot, Aero, Caleb, Red Mars Man, Cody, Chris, Jacob, Darren, Lauren, Sarah, The Juice, and Andrew. Thank you so much for all of your support. And as again, go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com and whatsonnetflix.com. We shall see you guys soon. Laters. Thank you very much for watching this video. Make sure you go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Like, follow, and subscribe. Also, a huge thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and also on our YouTube channel memberships. And I shall see you guys in another video. Laters.